I have been hearing so many people say that they don't understand the SparkShort piece float, so I'm breaking it down today. Hello friends and family members, I'm Megan and this is the Fangirl, where I break things up into tiny digestible pieces so you can hopefully get it now. And I feel like it's very important to cover float right now because a lot of people are seeing it, but many people aren't picking up on the subtext of that story. Float is a Disney Plus exclusive short where this single dad is playing with his little boy when suddenly the toddler starts floating around the yard. The dad actually seems kind of impressed until the neighbors start noticing the baby and they get all repulsed by him. So the dad takes his boy inside and locks him up in this dark house, rarely ever venturing outside. As the child gets older, the dad has to take him out with a leash and put heavy rocks in his backpack to keep him from flying around and freaking out the neighbors. But when they get to the park, that little boy is so excited that nothing is holding him back. He's flying around, exploring everything, and the other parents are making faces and holding their children back like this little kid is some kind of rabid dog. This is a short film about disabilities. I'm going to reference it as autism because my 3-year-old was just diagnosed with autism over the summer, and I hear the director of this short also has a son with autism, but really you can insert anything that makes a kid not neurotypical or makes them different from other kids. So I get it. If you're a parent that hasn't lived through this, then this mini movie might not make any sense to you. But from experience, when you have a kid that is abnormal from what the other kids are doing, people do talk. They do pull their children away. Heck, the other kids even run away and often give you the same dirty looks that their parents are making. How dare they use this public space to let their special needs child play here? Especially when you have a younger child with invisible disabilities, which means they aren't in a wheelchair or they don't have braces or crutches or something that people can physically see something is wrong. Most of the world just sees your kid as some freak or a kid who's never seen discipline in their life, which means these total strangers are under the impression that you aren't hitting your kid enough when they misbehave, and that's what their problem is. Now, in Float, we have this poor father who clearly doesn't know what to do. He's almost excited that his son can fly until the neighbors walk by and he realizes, oh wait, that's not normal. And within the span of a few seconds, you have 3 different families staring at this dad and son like they're Jack the Ripper, and so dad rushes them inside their dark house and locks his son away from public view. Now, in real life, the dad would have greatly benefited from having some kind of support group with other special needs parents, but also like in real life, those aren't available everywhere. So dad never really gets educated. He never really understands his son. Then flash forward a few years, the son is still being kept inside and he's still floating around, coloring up on the ceiling, but he's at least being somewhat supported by his dad, and that dad's not going, hey, you can't do this, you better get back on the ground. Well, that is until they have to go in public. Then this little boy who has these incredible talents has to mask himself as a normal person, just walking around like some sucker when he could be flying. And to really drive home that the dad character is forcing the masking onto the child, it's not like the little boy sees the other kids and he wants to emulate them. It's the dad making him be normal because Papa's picking up these big heavy rocks and putting them in his backpack, so yes, you are staying grounded. The rocks are so heavy in the bag that the little boy physically can't fly. He has to be like everybody else, and while some of you might watch this thinking, yeah, that's great, he should want to be like everybody else, that's just not how autism works. And the flying isn't a safety issue because the little boy never runs off. He never floats up into the clouds or goes anywhere that his dad can't get him. He wants to be near his dad, but he also wants to be himself while he's near his dad. Those rocks are for the sake of keeping other people happy, so that they don't stare and whisper and give dad dirty looks. But that little boy gets so excited to go play at the park. It may have been the first time he was ever at the park. And even though rocks can't keep him down then, he starts floating anyway, zipping around, seeing everything he can. He's just having so much fun and not bothering anybody. Just out there doing his own thing. And even so, the other parents have these knee-jerk reactions of like, ugh. They hide their kids or glare at the dad like this child having fun is somehow putting a dent in their day. You know the type, pretentious f***ing assholes. Well, the dad gets so stressed out and overwhelmed with how everybody else is having a problem that he grabs his son and starts dragging him towards the exit. And the little boy doesn't understand. He's having a great time and he's upset to leave. So in response, he starts making this weird yelling noise and trying to fight his way to freedom to go back and play. And to this, the dad meets his son with the one line of dialogue in this short. "Why can't you be normal?" Well, because that's not who he is. That one question destroys this little boy and he stops floating. He puts his jacket hoodie over his head and he just silently cries. See, I think the hardest part about being autistic is that to you, you are normal. What you're doing is all you can do. It's all you know how to be. Some people are so high functioning that they can mask things or put rocks in the backpack. But even so, when you get overwhelmed or excited, your autism still might slip out. See, the real problem of this story, the real moral of it, I think, is that the dad is fixating on everybody else's reaction. He's so worried about all these idiots who don't know him and don't make any effort to get to know him. And he cares so much about what these nobodies think that he's punishing his son for doing nothing wrong. And I know there's probably people watching this video who think the dad should go around to all the other parents and explain to them, "Hey, my son has special needs, so don't worry when you see this, or he's doing that because he has autism." And so then everyone will feel more comfortable and they'll get along with the little boy and it'll all be happily ever after, right? Yeah, okay, the adults might calm down if they hear, "Sorry, he has autism." But what message is that sending your child, who's the only person whose comfort you should be caring about, if you're going around telling everybody that his issues are something that should be apologized for constantly? All that really accomplishes is telling your kid that they have problems. And not only are they not normal, but they should feel ashamed and apologetic for not being normal. And if you think about it, to have to go to every person you ever meet for the rest of your life and explain your child to them is just utterly exhausting. Not to mention, I don't owe you medical history just because you're uncomfortable with something. If you have a problem, guess what? You have a problem. It's not my problem. Here's a better idea. If a child doing something is not affecting or harming you in any way, shape, or form, then shut up. Keep your eyes in your head and mind your own frickin' business. If mom or dad aren't freaking out over every little misstep their child makes, it's probably because all of their attention and energy are going to fight bigger battles that you know nothing about. So no, the dad and float should not go around handing out his child's personal information to make other people happier. It's society that needs to change their mindset about what they're entitled to. And rather quickly, when the dad realizes that what he said is actually shutting his son down, he physically went to the ground and closed off and started crying. He was hurting, but it was all internalized the most he could keep it. And to dad's credit, he saw it. He realized it. He didn't go, "Well, good, now we can go." He changed his heart about the situation and what his son can do. So dad scoops up his son and they start swinging, which is a really popular sensory input for a lot of autistic people. And after a few minutes, the son perks back up and he's flying up in the air even higher than before, except for this time, instead of trying to stop him or shame him or explain it away, dad just lets his kid be and plays with him like floating's no big deal. It's just what you do, kid. It's fine. The other kids don't come over to join them, but it's okay because the little boy has somebody now, his dad. And sometimes that's all you really need to be happy. Now wait, don't leave yet. I do want to explain that some of the vocabulary I used in this video is more for dramatic effect and not the proper terminology. If you want to be as polite as possible, use the term neurotypical if you're referring to somebody who's average, I guess. People who don't have any kind of issues, and then you say neurodiverse for people who do have autism or similar things. I talk about autism in a lot of different videos, and I'm always shocked at how many people tell me, "Oh, you don't know anything about autism from the way you're talking," which is a giant and wrong assumption. Or people think I shouldn't talk about it at all because I'm neurotypical, which is again a giant and wrong assumption. And I'm also pretty surprised at how many people don't really know what autism is. It's a word they know, but if you say, "Okay, but what does that mean?" they don't have an answer. They don't understand. Autism is not a mental retardation or some kind of curse, but it does make your brain work differently to where you might jump around a lot or flap your hands. You might not understand how to make friends or use appropriate personal boundaries, which includes saying things right as they come off the top of your head, no filter or anything, and then not getting that, hey, that's rude or offensive, or why are people upset with me now? Like, it doesn't click. It can also be very easy for an autistic person to become overloaded with sensory issues. And yes, that's sensory like your five senses. So imagine going around and textures, colors, lights, sounds, or smells, and they're all very overwhelming, like 10 times more intense than what you're used to dealing with. And that's kind of what it's like for somebody with autism and sensory issues. So when you're walking by and some kids are blasting like, I just met you, and this is crazy, and you're like, hey, I've heard that song. Yeah, that's a pretty good song. I'm gonna dance along to it while I walk by, maybe sing a little bit. The autistic child may hear the same thing and feel like they're being physically tortured. Like it's this echoing blast of sonar just hitting them until they have a meltdown. Or you might be walking by and somebody has a flashlight and you just see the little light illuminating. Somebody with sensory issues might see that and feel like the light is consuming their entire body. It's very overwhelming. But it's not all bad. There's many autistic people who have fantastic memories, or they're super intelligent or incredibly creative. They say the guy who made Pokemon is autistic, and that's the biggest franchise in the world. So it's not like autism is this bad, horrible, can't live in society condition. You're just hardwired in your head a different way than everybody else. It's often more like being out of sync with how other minds work. And most importantly, an autistic person is not likely to hurt you, unless of course you run into my Hulk of a 3-year-old who wants to play and doesn't realize how big and strong he is. But you can't catch autism. It's not like you're gonna share a soda and oops, I'm autistic now. So it's really okay, and I would say even encourageable, to go make friends with somebody who has autism. Even if you set up a play date and the autistic child doesn't seem thrilled to be there or over the moon to play with other children, they might even give you zero reaction. But they may also walk away saying that's the best time they ever had because nobody's ever played with them before. I can tell you that you don't get invited to many parties or events when your kid is different. And there's a lot of times where you feel like you can't go because even sitting in the audience would be such a disruption to other people. Autism spectrum disorder affects a lot of people in many different ways. It is by no means a one-size-fits-all kind of diagnosis. So even if you know two people with autism, they might be on completely different ends of the spectrum or have completely different weaknesses and strengths. I don't know who said it, but I love the quote, if you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism. The brain of every autistic person works differently, and that's okay. As Princess Bubblegum said, we don't have to understand it, we just have to accept it. And if you have it within your power to do any little thing to include somebody with autism or any other invisible or visible disability, please be that good person and do that, because you don't know what that could mean to that kid, to their family, even if they're an adult. You think it's hard to make friends as a regular adult? Try making friends as an adult with special needs, because it's probably never gonna happen. Thanks for listening to me rant a little bit here, guys. I might be overthinking it, but that's literally my job. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that? Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.